So I am sharing the screen. Please let me know. Can you able to view my screen? I open a paint window. Yes, is it visible? Yes. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So please let me know what we have discussed in our last session. In our last session, any doubt? Hope we have created a Ubuntu instance, and then here I demonstrate we have created a Ubuntu instance in North Virginia data center of AWS, and I have demonstrated how to connect to this Ubuntu instance by using a tool like Putty. Okay, so here we discussed about various types of what is AMI, and followed with instance type, that is instance category, and then followed with the security group, which is nothing but firewall, the way by which the user authentication has been made. And we installed Java, we installed Python, and then we installed Maven, we installed MySQL, we installed and configured a web server. So these are all the things that we did. Today what we are going to do, we are going to continue with how to launch a Windows instance, and then followed with I am going to demonstrate the storage part of AWS. Also because with respect to our course has been concerned, so GenAI, we need to store a lot of data, we need to do a lot of data, we need to, while building a model. So for storing this in this production grade environment using cloud, so you want to aware of storage. Two type of storage which is most predominantly used is S3, Amazon Simple Storage Service of AWS, and then Azure Blob, binary large object of Azure. These are all the two storages that you should aware of. So apart from that, only one thing that you want to aware here is Lambda function, which is nothing but this serverless computing function. And then at the time, at the end, what you need to do while you deploy a model, develop the model, GenAI model, and for deploy the model, what you need to know? You need to know the concept of Kubernetes, basic Kubernetes, and so for which we are going to make use of a service called EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. How to build a model and how to deploy a model to work in production environment. So this is normally Kubernetes that we will be using. So this Lambda function up the Lambda function that we will discuss later up to this. Okay. So the Kubernetes and Lambda function will be discussed later. Up to this, we complete the discussion on this AWS, and followed with I will demonstrate how you can do this activity. The similar to, if you are familiar with Azure, if anyone wants to, if your environment demands Azure, so how to launch a instance and how to connect with the instance and how to create this storage, this part of Azure alone that we are going to do. Okay. Apart from after that, we will be starting with our Python. So Python will be of nearly 10 classes, and followed with we will be starting with this GenAI. Okay, this is the agenda. These are all advanced concept of GenAI at that time. So how to give security, how to go for the production grade, how to configure these guardrails, and then in terms of observability engineering, so how you can able to monitor. Likewise, at that time we can discuss. We can move back to AWS to discuss on this Kubernetes. Now this is what that we discussed. Anyone also I demonstrated how to create a free AWS account. How to create a free AWS account. So if anyone tried, and if you get stuck with anything, please let me know. If not, we can proceed further. So now we are going to, in certain scenario, we want to launch a Windows server. Okay, how you can launch a Windows server, and what are all the difference between launching a Linux-based environment and Windows-based environment, that we are going to discuss. I will give you a minute time. Kindly go through again my humble request, I want each and everyone at least to take a class hints, whatever topic that we are discussing, so that you can make a note of it. It will be very, very easy at any point of time. If you go through at any point of time, it will be very much helpful for you. Yes, if you have any questions, please let me know. And I want each and everyone to interact without any hesitations. Whatever, then only you can able to learn a lot. Okay. So now let me connect with my AWS account. So to connect with my AWS account, www.aws.amazon.com. Here under my account, click on this AWS Management Console. So here I want to sign in as a root user. So if you create account, the account that you create is a root user account. So D2H, D2H2WT. N N7TMBY. So I want to associate with my MFA. Three, 6, 4. So now I got connected to my account. In certain time you want to use these windows. Okay, majority of the time you will be using Linux. Just 10 minutes of difference. That's all. So the major difference between this Windows and Linux machine here is, so you already know how to launch a Linux instance, and Linux versus Windows. What in which way it differs from Windows. So if you use this Linux, you use as default username. Default username. Okay, here we have used Ubuntu. If you use Ubuntu as AMI, Ubuntu as username, and for Amazon Linux, it is EC2-user. These are all the default username, and then it is passwordless authentication. You no need to give any password. Authentication for this default user or passwordless authentication. Okay. Whereas here the user that you want to log in, so here what you need to do. So here the user that you want to log in should be administrator login alone, and then here you the password you want to provide the password based authentication. Password need to be generated. Okay, so that is the first difference. The second difference, you can use .pem key and .ppk key, both the keys that you can use. If you use putty, then you can use ppk key, and then if you use SSK's direct connect without using putty, and then you need to generate PEM key. Here you want to use only PEM key alone supported. Okay, while generating this password, when you want to create only .pem key alone supported. It won't support ppk. Here the protocol used to connect with this RDP. RDP stands for Remote Desktop Protocol. Remote Desktop Protocol. This is the protocol that it supports. Here the protocol here is SSH protocol. Secured Shell. SSH stands for Secured Shell Protocol. So when you use this T2.micro, in our example, we are going to use T2.micro. It provides one microprocessor, 1 GB of RAM memory, and 8 GB of hard disk. Okay. So whereas the same thing when you use this T2.micro, here it provides 30 GB of hard disk. Earlier this is free. Now they provide us in forms of credit. So these are all some of the things that you are expected to aware. The difference between a Linux, apart from all other processors, say to launch a Linux instance, it took minimum 1 minute. Within a minute, it will be launched. For Windows, it will be 4 to 5 minutes. So it's because it took some time to generate this admin password. Okay, so therefore it needs some time. So we are going to launch here some Windows server. I am going to demonstrate how to launch this. Please make a note of it. When you want this Windows client like a Windows 10, Windows 11, likewise, so you want to log in using AWS Workspace. There is one service, AWS Workspace, using which you can configure the Windows client. Here we are going to demonstrate how to configure a Windows server. For Windows client, you want to go for this. Just please note down. So let I launch this now. So go to this EC2. This is my AWS console. Go to the EC2. Click on this instance tag. Can you able to view my screen? I opened the AWS console. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. launch instance. Here under the name of this instance, let me give a name. So Windows, let me go for Windows. And here with respect to this AMI, earlier I had chosen Ubuntu and Amazon Linux. Now I want to choose Windows. That's all. The AMI that I need to choose here is Windows. When you click on Windows, all the associated all the associated Windows variant will be listed here. When you click on the drop down menu, you can find Windows 2025, Windows 2022, Windows 2019, Windows with SQL server. Okay, likewise, according to your need, whatever thing that you want, you can choose accordingly. These are all the available versions. So Windows with Office Professional Plus. Okay, so these are all the things that it provides. So we can go with Windows as a base, Windows base. Okay, this is what that we have selected. So I have selected Windows base 2025 and instance type. So for Windows, we need minimum 2 CPU and then okay, 1 GB of RAM. Let me go with little bit more CPU and more RAM normally. So 2 CPU, 2 GB of RAM likewise. Okay, 2 CPU, 2 GB of memory. So even it will work for T2.micro itself. T2.micro, but it will be little bit slow. Okay, therefore we go for a T2. This one, and then followed with keypad. As I already told, similarly you want to create a keypad. That keypad should be a PM keypad, which is used for with OpenSSK. When you use PuTTY, then you can use PPK. The keypad that you want to create is PM keypad. Okay, I hope I have some keypad with me already created. So Happiest Minds Windows Private. Okay, so the keypad that I have chosen here is Happiest Minds Windows Private. So I have another key, Windows July 26. Hope that I can make use of this keypad. Happiest Minds Windows Private, which I created. That's all. Okay. So now security group, you can find automatically a security group by allow RDP traffic has been assigned automatically. So launch Wizard 8. This is the security group. If you already have a security group which is associated with the Windows, you can go with. So if there is a security group associated with Windows, you know that you can go with. So first time you can create a security group. This is the name of the security group. You can make a note. Here if you are going to configure anything web server, then you need to add this. Okay. And then as I already told, the hard disk is 30 GB. These are all the basic differences. So while choosing, you want to choose this AMI, and then in terms of instance type, you can go with a little bit more rather than going up with the T2.micro. Why is it? Because Windows Server 2020 need more CPU and RAM. And then keypad, you want to create a .pem keypad. That's all. Let I launch instance. It took minimum 3 to 4 minutes to launch the instance. Then we can connect with the instance using a protocol called RDP. So, and then you want to generate an administrator password. That's the difference. So let me wait for some time. Now let me try to connect with this. So select this Windows instance. Okay, so earlier, so this is the IP address. Now earlier we used this IP address to connect via PuTTY. Now we are going to use a RDP protocol. So for which once you select this Windows instance, now you can straight away click on connect. When you click on connect, it will open another connect window. So here you want to choose this RDP client. You can connect using this RDP client. So when you connect using RDP client, you want to download a RDP file to connect with, and then you are aware that the username is admin. Then I need to get the password. So click on get password. So to getting password, you want to be a authenticated user. So it will prompt to provide your key. This is the key that we have chosen. Happiest means Windows private. So I need to upload the private key file. If I am an authenticated user, I should possess that key file, and then if the key file is perfect, then only it will reveal the password. Upload a key file, file name. So here it chooses a alt file. I hope probably in my downloads. Uh, Happiest means Windows personal, is it? Earlier this month, what's the key? Happiest means Windows personal is the key. File name, happiest minds, Windows. I deleted. Happiest means Windows private. Just a minute. In the download part, in the desktop part, happiest means Windows private. There is no such happiest means one alone is there. In the download part, happiest means, yeah, win, happiest means Windows private. This is the key 25.6. Okay. So where it is in the download, I want to copy this. Copy. Keep a copy on the desktop. It is choosing some other key. Yeah? So this is the key. Happiest means Windows private is the key. This I need copy and keep a copy on the desktop. Yeah. Okay. Let me give this key now. Now upload. This is the key. Happiest means Windows private. Upload a private key and choose this desktop. Here by default it will choose PEM file. It won't list that. So select all files. It will list that. Okay. Select all the files. It will list. If you want, you can also filter using PEM files or PPK files. Okay. So means private. These are all the file. Open. Then if it is perfect, then the key will be shown to the key. This is the key. Okay. The password key instance. This is the password. So then decrypt the password. You want to click on decrypt the password, and this is the password that you want to use. This is the password. Keep a copy of the password and download the remote desktop file. Windows RDP good harm keep. Okay, so I want to click on open the file. When you click on open the file, it file will open. Click on connect. It prompt for the password. Paste the password and click on OK. Yes. Now I got connected to Windows Server which I launched. This is the way by which you can install and configure a Windows Server. This is for your additional knowledge, that's all. Normally we will be using only Linux environment. In certain scenario alone we go for Windows. So to make it easy. So if you know cloud, then it will be very easy for all verticals of computer roles, computer science roles. Then knowledge of cloud is very pretty essential. More importantly, if we go for high data intense and high compute intense, like machine learning, AI, machine learning, deep learning, Gen AI, so you put in invest so lot to purchase the infra. A laptop with 32 GB of RAM or 64 GB of RAM with the 8 core processor, you need an investment of 2 to 3 lakhs. Instead of that, if you know cloud, whenever you need, you can connect with the cloud, you get the resource, you can complete the activity. So that's why. So I am focusing on cloud with respect to our curriculum has been concerned, which I earlier not planned. So this is the Windows server. This is the Windows server that you can work with. You can find this is the Windows server. Okay. So that's all with respect to how to go for. Now let I go to this instance. And once the activity has been over, go to the instance and terminate the instance. So when you use cloud, immediately once your activity has been over, without laziness, you should terminate. So the next part of discussion is the storage part. So here with respect to AWS cloud has been concerned, the storage in AWS cloud has been categorized into following category. Okay. So in terms of AWS, the storage has been categorized into the following category. One, block storage, AWS storage type. Second, object storage. And third type of storage is file storage. So under block storage, there are two types of storage. One is instant store, and second type of storage here is elastic block store. And under object storage, there are two types of storage. One is AWS simple storage service. AWS simple storage service. Sorry, simple storage service. We call this as simply S3. One of the most widely used cloud storages in the cloud industry. And another one is Glacier, which is nothing but archive storage. If you want to store data for a long duration with less cost, you can opt for Glacier. And file store, elastic file share. Elastic file share. We call this as EFS. So what is instant store? We call it as IS, Elastic Block Store, EBS, and Amazon Simple Storage Services 3, Glacier, and EFS. Okay. So when you create an instance, it is mandatory that you need a hard disk for storing operating system files. Okay, this hard disk which is needed for this operating system files is called as block storage. The block storage is used for storing OS files, and it is used for storing some simple text files. Okay, apart from that. So when you create an instance, then during this launch of the instance, it will create a hard disk. That hard disk can be either instant store based hard disk or elastic block store EBS based hard disk. This hard disk is, whether it is instant store or EBS, depends upon the AMI that you are choosing. Almost 95% of AMI in AWS comes with EWS, only 5%. So 3 to 5% of AMI comes with instant store. Okay. So the main difference between choosing this instant store and EBS here is, when you choose this instant store and when the instance is terminated, the hard disk also will be terminated. So this is the first difference, data persistence. We call this as technically data persistence. So for instant store, the data is directly associated with the lifetime of instance. Okay, instance is terminated, data also terminated. Whereas on the other hand, in terms of elastic block store, even the instance is terminated, the data will be retained there. Later, you can create another instance and you can associate this hard disk. You can associate this EBS volume, and you can able to perform read and write. Okay. So another mandatory thing, it is mandatory the instance need to be attached. The hard disk need to be attached with an instance. Okay, it need to be attached. Whether it is instance store or EBS volume, it is mandatory. It need to be attached with an instance. Then only you can able to perform read or write activity. Without attaching to the instance, you can't perform any activity here. It is mandatory. So if you create this block storage, it is mandatory. It need to be attached with the instance. And then with respect to this instance, there will be one primary hard disk, which is used for storing operating system files. That hard disk is called as, here in this terminology, root hard disk or root volume. So here you can also create additional data volume. So here you have an instance and you have one root volume where your operating system files will be there. If you want, you can create additional hard disk. This additional hard disk is called as data volumes. Okay. So these are all some of the key facts about this instance store. Okay. So here the mapping here, it will be 1-to-1 mapping. That means one instance is, in this example, one instance is associated with one hard disk. Here one to many mapping. One instance can be associated with many hard disks, can have many hard disks. So this is the point. The first point, the block storage is used for storing OS files and simple text file. And then the type, there are two types, instant store and elastic block store. And then the difference between instant store and elastic block store is in terms of data persistence. So data persistence means lifetime of data. So if instance is deleted, the data also deleted. If it is IS, for EBS, it is like a pen drive. Earlier you attached with the instance one. Instance is terminated. The hard disk is remains there and data remains there. You can create another instance to and attach it. This EPS volume is similar to your external hard disk, or you can consider this as a pen drive. Okay. And then another important thing, this is point number 3. Another important point here is the mapping. In terms of mapping, it is one to one mapping or one to many mapping. Okay. So these are all some of the key points associated with block storage. I will give you first 5 minutes of time to make a note of all the storage type. The storage that we are going to focus is will be object storage, simplified. Okay, S3 is what we are going to focus to make you understand what are all the other storages available and differences between those storages. This I give little bit focus, more focus on this. I will give you 5 minutes of time. Kindly note down. So audience, at least to one, I will be happy. If you have any questions, I am ready to address. Is it clear? Whatever thing is going on, can you able to understand? Ashwani, Nitya, Malibabu, Shia,
Yes, sir.
Charin,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Yeah, sir.
So the next type of storage here is object storage. Okay. So object storage is a storage which is used for storing all multimedia objects. This is what that we are going to be focused more. It is used for storing our multimedia objects. So what is multimedia object? Multimedia object in sense to store audio files, to store video files, to store images, to store PDFs. Okay. So if we are going with this model, or we are going with the concept like rack. Okay. So in rack we will be want to store a lot of PDF files likewise. So we will be using this object storage. So this here the object storage has been categorized into two things. One is S3, another one is Glacier. So here, if your application needs data in real time real time read and write, then you want to use this object storage. Okay. So if you are here, this cost will be little bit high comparatively. If your application can withstand delay, that is batch processing application. So data analytics batch processing application. Okay. So here the cost will be less. If we go, then the performance, the read and write will be very slow in this case, whereas and read and write will be very fast in this case based upon your requirement, whether application which is going to use the storage, if it need data immediately, then the solution here is S3. If it can withstand delay, then solution is Glacier. So in terms of this cost, assume for storing a particular object, the cost is rupees 10 per month. The same thing when you use Glacier, it will be rupees 2 per month. That is the level of the cost, but the performance is very slow. So minimum it need 1 hour to maximum 10 hours to fetch a file. If the file has been stored, to read or write a file, the minimum duration we need 1 hour to 10 hours. Why so? Because the Glacier is made up of, yeah, archives. Glacier is made up of low cost commodity hardware. Therefore, the reading and writing will take a lot of time. So both serves for same purpose. In both the storage S3 as well as Glacier, we can use for storing the opposite audio, video, images, but in terms of performance and in terms of cost. Then when and where you want to use Glacier. So if you want to store some data associated with some compliances of your clients that need to be retained for longer duration, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year. Okay, for example, let me take one example. Healthcare system, all the hospitals, okay, they maintain, they want to maintain and assume there are around 10,000 patients. Okay, the hospital, a premium hospital with 10,000 patients, they want to maintain all records of the patients, like earlier visit, the details of their visit, and then the diagnosis that has been made. With respect to diagnosis, we might have taken some x-rays, some blood reports, and some scans. All these copy along with medical prescription, everything need to be maintained, okay, until the life of the patient. Okay, so whenever, if you want to, for example, a patient visited a hospital at the age of 10, so assume up to 70 years is with any time he will be visiting for his illness. So that data need to be maintained until this 60 plus years. So the data is not needed in real time. Whenever the patient is suffering from illness, you want to get an appointment from the doctor, and then once the appointment, once for example today is Friday, so today, if you want to visit, then you need to get an appointment in India time, it is morning. The appointment will be evening or the appointment will be Saturday. Therefore, what we can do in these sort of applications, they no need data real time means the data can be stored in Glacier. When the patient got the appointment, a request can be initiated to fetch the data within a year or within a 1 hour or 2 hour or 3 hour based upon the volume of data. The data will be fetched, and at that time the patient meet the doctor. Everything will be available. So the cost is very very less. For the same sort of application, if you use storage like S3, cost will be more. But if you are doing any real time read and write real time application, you can't withstand delay, this much of delay. Therefore, the solution is S3. We will be focusing more on S3. So this is the difference between uh, simple storage S3 and a Glacier. Another important factor. So when you use this object storage, it is not necessary that you need to connect it with an instance. Okay. So when you use this object storage, what you will create one container. You will create one container. In S3 we call this as a bucket. In S3 we call this as a bucket. In Glacier we call this as a vault. When a user upload a file, the file will be uploaded. Yeah, URL will be automatically assigned to the file. A URL will be assigned to the file. To whoever that you want to allow access. I want to allow access to Prabhu. I want to allow access to Kalyan. Okay, so whoever I want to access, just I want to share the URL Prabhu and Kalyan. So when they have enough access permission, straight away they can able to access this file. What they need from that side, they need a device which support a web browser. That is enough. Apart from that, they don't need anything. They no need to connect with this AWS cloud to access the object that we have stored in S3. Prabhu or Kalyan no need to connect with the AWS cloud. So straight away they can able to access with a device which support a web browser. So that's the advantage of going for this object storage. So the difference between a block storage versus object storage means a block storage used for storing operating system files. Object storage is used for storing all multimedia objects. It is mandatory. If you use block storage, you need to associate with the instance. Then only you can able to read or write. For object storage, it is not necessary. That straight away, any object, any it may be a audio, video, any file that is uploaded will be assigned a URL, and then that URL can be shared to the user. The user given the right appropriate access permissions from a device which support a web browser, even without connecting to the cloud, they can able to use it. Okay, so in block storage, two type IS and EBS. Similarly, in object storage, S3 and Glacier. Your application needs real-time read and write, go with S3. If your applications can withstand delay, and if you want to store huge volume of data, with respect to client compliances, the data need to be retained for a longer duration, go for Glacier. So these are all overview of block storage and object storage. I will give you 5 minutes of time. Kindly make a note of all these points clearly. Hope everyone is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Have you noted down all the points which we have mentioned?
Yeah, sir, I have noted down, sir.
Okay, thank you. And finally, the EFS. In certain scenario, we go for EFS. If you are working with the big data, so like Hadoop, Apache, Spark, you can go for a storage like EFS. Okay, so EFS stands for we have block storage, under which we completed discussion on instant store and elastic block store, and we have object storage, under which we have an overview of S3 and Glacier, and we have a file share. Under file share, it is EFS. EFS stands for elastic file share. Here, the mapping in terms of block storage, one instance will have one hard disk. One instance may have multiple hard disks, out of which one hard disk is called as root volume. We can have multiple data volume. So one to one mapping, one to many mapping. Here also, as object storage, you have a bucket. So when you have a file, anyone can have access. It is a shared content. So one bucket can be accessible by multiple users. So here, if you want an data, so if you want a hard disk, which contains some files which need to be shared by multiple instances, applications running on multiple instances. Example scenario, as I told, it is a Hadoop big data. So we have multiple nodes called as data nodes, data node 1, data node 2, n number of data nodes, where my application map reduce programming application is running, which need access to a common file. So here the storage that you want to go for here is EFS. EFS is a shared storage. We call this as a shared volume. So in terms of mapping, so many to one mapping. The mapping here is many to one mapping. That means many instances can share a common volume. Okay, so this is the difference between block storage and the EFS file share in terms of this mapping has been concerned. Okay, so where you want to use EFS, where you want to use S3, this is object storage for storing all these audio, video, images, etc. So animations, everything, and then for storing operating system files, some simple text files, the block storage, use of object storage, use of file share. This is all about an overview of what is what. In this example, when you create some instance, it is mandatory you should know the concept of EBS. Now I am going to demonstrate how to create a EBS volume. So how to create a EBS, how to attach this volume, how to detach this volume. In case if you want to modify, how to modify this volume, attach, detach, and how to delete the volume. A simple exercise. We'll be giving more attention towards this S3. Under S3, we will be discussing a little bit more. Okay. So before going into that, I want to make you aware of one other concept. So with respect to cloud, we discussed about regions. We discussed about availability zones. Okay, we discussed about its location or its caching. With respect to the resource visibility, with respect to the resource visibility and access has been concerned, we can categorize the resources into three categories. One is zone specific resource. Second one, region specific resource. Third one, global resources. Zone specific resource, region specific resource, global resource. Assume this is there is a Mumbai region. There is a Mumbai region. In Mumbai region, in primary Mumbai, availability zone 1. in Pune, availability zone 2 assumed to be at Pune. Availability zone 3 assumed to be at Nasik. You know what is availability zone? Already we discussed. Availability zone 3. Availability zone 1, availability zone 2. When you create a instance, altogether we call it as a Mumbai region. Togetherly we call it as a Mumbai region containing 3 availability zones. When you create a instance here, the instance is visible and accessible in Pune. The instance is visible and accessible in Nasik. When you create a instance in any one of the availability zone belonging to a region, it will be visible and accessible to in all other availability zones. Okay, you can able to view the instance. You can able to access the instance in all availability zones. Okay, so this sort of resources is called as region specific. Region specific example EC2 instance. Okay, the instance which is created in Mumbai is visible in Pune and Nasik, but that instance won't be visible in, so for example, another region, Hyderabad. In Hyderabad data center, I can't able to access. In Singapore data center, I can't able to access and view. Only it is visible within that region. That we call it as region specific resource. What I am trying to convey is clear. Second thing, so for that instance, you want to associate a volume, EBS volume. Okay, you want to create a volume, as I already told, you want to create a volume and you want to attach a volume. So the EBS volume, that if you want to associate with the instance running on the Mumbai, the EBS volume also need to be created on the Mumbai. If you create a EBS volume in Pune and it is not possible to associate with the instance directly, there is another way, but it is not possible. The EBS volume which is created on a particular availability zone is viewable and accessible only within that availability zone. Beyond that availability zone, it won't be visible. Okay, when you create this EBS volume, won't be visible in availability zone 2, availability zone 3. It won't be visible in Hyderabad or Singapore. Therefore, EBS volume, instance store volume is an example of zone specific. The volume is visible and accessible and controllable within that particular zone where it is created. So this is a second thing, zone specific. On the other hand, third thing, when you create a S3 bucket in availability zone, S3 bucket in availability zone Mumbai, that bucket is visible in Pune, that bucket will be visible in Nasik, that bucket will be visible in Singapore, that bucket will be visible in Hyderabad. Wherever across all the 39 regions, we discussed about 39 regions, excluding 4 government cloud and China. In all the 35 regions, you can able to access that bucket. Okay. So therefore, a global resource S3 bucket is an example of global resource. Similarly, another service called IAM, and then Glacier Vault is an example of global resource. A resource which is created on a particular availability zone is visible and accessible across all availability zone belonging to the region and also across all the regions, all other regions. So any resource that you are going to work in AWS, you should have the idea whether the resource belongs to zone specific or region specific or a global resource. Then only you can able to do all the practicals without any problem. Please note down. So these are all overview of the storage that we are going to discuss. This is common whether it is AWS or Azure. In Azure also we have block storage, we have object storage, we have file share. All the three. Okay. Whatever is possible in AWS, the same thing is applicable in Azure also. The concept is same. The way by which we work with the service name alone will be different. Apart from the concept is same. So we will be focusing more on S3, because in our curriculum, S3 we are going to make use of in lot of things in certain cases. So to create an instance, you should know EBS. The concept of EBS and S3 will be discussed on tomorrow, Saturday, IST, and Friday, EDT or EST. For US participants, tomorrow session is Friday, and for Indian participants, it will be on Saturday. So I will share you the link and I will share you this recording. Kindly go through it and we can do all the practical on tomorrow. Before going into that, kindly go through once again whatever thing that we have discussed, all this theoretical concept, please go through. So come clear with the concept so that it will be easy for you to go with the practical. Balaji, Lalitesh, Maka, only. Is it clear? What
Yes,
we
sir.
have? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
At the end, can you give me the brief explanation when compared to the both three, if possible?
I already
Overview.
shared. This is third time. Overview I had given. You joined later.
No, sir. You explained the both three, right? Object and block, file storage. Just overview, brief explanation about three, while comparing by end of the class,
Yeah, this
if
comes to
possible.
the end. This is what that we discussed in terms of
Yeah.
just now I completed block storage. There are two types of storage: instant store and EBS. Block storage is used for storing operating system files. This is used for storing operating system files. And then here, with respect to this instance, difference between instant store and EBS store here is in terms of data persistence and in terms of mapping, one-to-one mapping and one-to-many mapping. Primarily, it is used for storing OS file. If you want to store audio, video, and images, the storage here is object storage. There are two categories. One is S3, another one is Glacier. So both is used for the same purpose. But S3, when you go for real-time read and write, your application need real-time read and write, then you need to go for S3. If you want a low-cost solution, and if the read and write, so here in this case, read and write will be slow, which is meant for archive purpose, that is for backup purpose. And then with respect to the block storage, it is mandatory that you need to associate with the instance. With respect to object storage, it is not. Straight away, the user can able to access the file so via a web browser. That's all. You no need to even have a cloud account. And if you want a storage which need to be shared among multiple instance, then you need to go for a EFS, Elastic File Share. Here a volume we can be shared among multiple data nodes. Okay. So the scenario where you can use here is Hadoop cluster, Spark cluster in distributed environment where your applications run across multiple nodes. Want to access a common data, you go for EFS. So this is all about an overview of all the three type of storages. So this comes to the end of today's discussion. We can continue on tomorrow with the practical part. If there are no questions, so I wind up this session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.